Cool. And I think our attendance has stopped moving, so let's get started. Welcome everyone to our fall alumni panel. We have 4 great panelists here today. We have some alum from various stages in their careers, kind of done a couple different things. So I'm excited to hear from all of them. I'm going to start with who I am in case people don't know, and then we'll have all of our panelists introduce themselves. We'll go in alphabetical order. So my name is Chelsea Bradford, and I work for University Honors, she, her pronouns, and I am the Assistant Director for Student Life with University Honors. A lot of our students have met me before, but what they may or may not know is that I am a UMD alum and a UH alum. So I actually asked some of my friends to join us for this panel, so you get to hear about things that I experience with them. It's gonna be fun, it's gonna be exciting. While I was at UMD, I studied mechanical engineering and minored in project management, and now I work here, so you can really end up anywhere. Yeah, let's jump into this, and if Alex can go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Alex Gorman. I graduated in 2010. I was a member of University Honors. I was part of the Smith School with majors in marketing and supply chain management. And then I also did an MBA at NYU. I'm currently the vice president for e-commerce and digital experience at Scholastic Inc. And yeah, while I was at Maryland, I was a part of Maryland Images. I worked in the honors office. I was a co-founder of Honors Ambassadors and did some sports marketing. So I was involved in the honors program in a variety of ways. I'm really happy to be back speaking to everyone.
Okay, I think I'm up next. Hi, everybody. I'm Morgan. I use she, her pronouns. I graduated from the University of Maryland in 2020, so I think I'm the youngest panelist here. I was a dual degree, criminology and criminal justice and psychology, so really holding it down for BSOS. When I was on campus, I was an honors ambassador. I was in the Gamer Symphony Orchestra, which we only played video game music, which is super, super fun. I volunteered with the PD Green program, which I tutored at a women's correctional facility. I was involved in a whole bunch of organizations, and I'm trying to think of anything else. I think I worked in advising for a little bit in the criminal department. So I don't know if I would overlap with any of you here, but I can answer many questions about the majors if you have them. And I'm currently in my 3rd year of law school at Georgetown University Law Center. So I'm here on campus. If any of you ever wondered what the inside of Georgetown Law looks like, I can answer that question.
Okay, I'm up. Hi, I'm Emily. I graduated from University of Maryland with Chelsea and Becky in 2014, and I was in University Honors. I was a dual degree in finance, so I was in the Smith School and with math, so CMNS. Graduated in 2014. I worked a couple different finance jobs after that in Philadelphia, where I'm from, and I didn't like it for a variety of different reasons. Wasn't for me, so I ended up getting a full scholarship plus a stipend from Westchester University for career changers in STEM to teach math in the city of Philadelphia. So I did an accelerated master's program for a year of student teaching, and now I'm in my 2nd year of teaching math in Southwest Philadelphia.
Hi, everyone. My name's Rebecca, or Becky is fine. My pronouns are she and her. I also graduated with Emily and Chelsea. I'm also located in Philadelphia. I guess while I was at the University of Maryland, I majored in mechanical engineering. I minored in international engineering, which is just a fancy way of saying I took a lot of French classes and studied abroad a couple of times. I haven't used French at all since I graduated. Upon graduation, I moved to Philadelphia to work at the Boeing Aerospace Company. And this past March 2022, I made a change to Comcast, where I'm the Senior Technical Program Manager for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. So pretty far departure from my technical background.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for sharing. Love hearing from you. Yeah, we have a lot of experiences here, and I worked really hard, guys, to give you a wealth of experiences, people in different backgrounds, different areas. Everyone says, oh, UH is so STEM heavy, and Yeah, that's not false. Like, I know what the numbers are, but you can really end up anywhere with that. So that's what we're going to hear more about. First question I wanted to ask our panelists, and you can all answer, some of you answer, it's up to you, but is what was most memorable about your UMD/UH experience?
I'll start, I guess. So I was looking at the curriculum that Chelsea sent out about UH, and I'm really jealous about how it's evolved. I think when I was in UH, it was much more basic. They had some honors level courses that you could take to round out your curriculum, but they weren't as focused and they weren't as focused or topical as some of the offerings now. So that's really great. That being said, I did get to take classes outside of my engineering realm. So I think I took like a history of the Vietnam War because that wasn't really taught in high school. I took a movie class, and it was like movie and apocalypses. So like way ahead of the 2020 COVID. So it was great to just get out of the comfort zone of those engineering classes. I also forgot to mention that I was in Flexus, which is Women in Engineering. I think they have a male component to that now too. And I ran on the cross country and track team. So it was a little bit busy. I think I don't know if I would be able to do all that if the UH program as it is now was like it was back then. Y'all are super fortunate to have these curriculums and tracks that seem super engaging.
Yeah, to follow it up, I think probably the coolest UH class that I took, and this is again, like I'm not part of the new curriculum, but I got to take a class about political theater, which was really, really cool. We went and saw like a bunch of different plays in DC, talked about a whole bunch of other ones, and it put me on to Hamilton, which I had not listened to before that point. So I just had a really, really fun time in the class. But of course, also like the people that I met in UH, like I'm still really good friends with a lot of people that I knew who lived in Hagerstown with me, who I took classes with, all of that fun stuff. But also really jealous to echo what Becky said about just super jealous of all the cool classes and stuff that you all get to do now.
That was also my favorite class. I took a theater class where we got to go to DC every week and see a bunch of different shows. And that was really, really cool. That I took that my first semester. So it was like, I was very unfamiliar with DC. So they taught me the metro, made a lot of friends. And also University Honors is where all of my like still college best friends are from. I don't think I have any from my majors. They're all just from meeting them in honors.
Yeah, I think the living component of the living learning program was a highlight for me as well, right? Having, being able to live with so many really awesome people that become lifelong friends, right? And then, speaking of things that we're jealous of that y'all have now, I think that the new dorm and dining areas and everything I've seen in the Alumni magazine and so on, super jealous. But we had a great time in Ellicott Hall. I was a gem in law. My roommate was in Gemstone. And so I get to hang out with a bunch of Gemstone folks in addition to University Honors. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of changes, and I'm not gonna lie, that's why I came back to work here. I was like, they got a really cool thing happening and I want to be part of that. So I am always jealous of all the things they're learning, and the new residence halls and dining hall are also very cool. If you're ever on campus, I'm happy to give tours because I love talking about Maryland. But all of those things we wish we had experienced, that will lead into my next question is like one experience you had an undergrad that you appreciate now more than you did at the time. I think what's hard for a lot of students is like, sometimes the moment you're like, this was boring, this feels dumb. And you're like, goodness, it came back and it was really important later. So like, is there anything you can think of that was like something you experienced in undergrad that you definitely appreciate now more than you did back then?
Okay. I know the business school did it. I'm sure other schools does it, and maybe honors do it, but they have you practice doing interviews for future careers. And I will say that like mastering an interview is so important, and really part of that is just practicing. So if you can practice in a setting with people that will help you and you just have that confidence going into it, that helps you a lot. So if you see any like practice interview things, I know at the time I was not happy to be there, but it really did help.
I'll say just a kind of categorical group projects. I know that is a big thing, right? You take in a class and then you see that word on the syllabus, right? And it's like, oh gosh. But hate to break it to you, right? But group projects don't go away. Work is a giant group project. And so if you can really master that skill set, and how do you lead a group of your peers through a challenging experience, and come away with a deliverable and a presentation, all of that, that's going to serve you really, really well in the long run.
I think two things. One is a lot of the soft skills. So, University Honors has all these great, one-off classes that teach you not only academically, but they apply it to the real world. At least they did when we were there, and I'm sure it's evolved even better now. Same with Flexus. And so what Emily was saying, interview skills, interpersonal skills, the group project component, all those things. As someone with a technical background, I was like, there's a right answer. It's numerical. Why do I have to, worry about it? But I mean, in the real world, the soft skills and the interpersonal relationships and the networking really is the bulk of what you're doing. You have to work together. The other thing is just going into a giant university where you're now a very small fish in a big pond. It helps set you up for the real world. Also, you are failing a lot, and you're learning to ask questions, and you have to adjust to different professors and different styles, and you're not handheld as much. And once you graduate, you're not expected to know everything. You're generally 22 years old and you have an academic background, but you're going to flounder again. And that's what college teaches you, is how to overcome that, how to ask the right questions, how to get out of your comfort zone, and just how to think about problems differently, and not necessarily always knowing the right answer.
Yeah, definitely echoing the soft skills component, because being in a law school, like, I'm surrounded by a lot of smart people, but not everybody has, necessarily the best interpersonal skills, and that can really, like, especially in a profession where who can be really important. Like, that's the sort of thing that you really want to hone in on. But I would also echo, like, I would add research skills are very important, because I feel like in this day and age, it's very easy to get swept into lots of misinformation, but especially like in the field that I'm in, legal research is like a really valuable skill, and it's a necessary skill to have. So I remember like being in Psych 300, being in CCS 300, being like, oh, like, I don't know how crazy I am about reading all these research articles and like learning how to do these things. But it's been super helpful for me, just building off the skills that I learned in undergrad and using them again here in the legal setting, but also in filtering out like what's actually like helpful and relevant and accurately represented in my personal life with whatever articles get sent around and that sort of thing too.
This was all really, really great advice. And I want to make note of the fact that Emily talked about interviewing and like practicing that. All that also ties into Portfolium to all of our students. It's basically a LinkedIn type service that the university has that we have our students do, and allow them, like, what is the point of this? It's tying into all of this, working on yourself, building those skills. So hopefully you're going to take these things our panelists have shared with you and you're going to apply them. Our next question, a number of you have changed or altered your career path. Any of you haven't professionally altered it. It may be different than when you started out in college at 18. So I wanted to give a chance for people to talk about, like, how did you change your path? Why did you change your path? You can be honest about what you don't like about what you did. So, yeah.
I'm happy to start. So when I was, in my senior year, right, I was a marketing major, primarily focused there looking for marketing jobs. And I was working in the honors office at the time. And I had been asked to, help out and let a group into Anne Arundel downstairs that was doing a corporate presentation. And it was a firm called Deloitte, their consultancy. And I was like, stick around, I'll let them in downstairs because I'll be here, and then I'll stick around and help them out and listen in. So I listened in on this presentation and ended up tossing my resume in because I met a few people there. I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, this whole consulting thing. Really hadn't considered it. Yada, 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 got the job and ended up starting my career as a consultant at Deloitte. and spent most of my career there, and then post-graduate school ended up shifting careers into industry, but still doing kind of digital and retail things. So all of that to say, right, what you think you're going to do is not necessarily what you're going to end up doing this right away. And you kind of have to keep your mind open, right? Take those opportunities to, hey, just learn more about something, meet some people. You never know where that's going to lead, right? So I always talk back to this kind of honors experience that was very much happenstance, but changed the total trajectory of my career, and was really interesting, right? So keep an open mind.
I go next. So while I was still at the University of Maryland, actually in one of those practice interview sessions that I was in, I interviewed with someone who worked at the EPA, and I actually took his card and followed up with him and got an internship that summer in the budgeting department of the EPA. And that is when I learned that I didn't want to work for the government. So I moved back to Philadelphia, took the first job that was offered to me. Another piece of advice, I would not do that. Really take the time to explore different offers is a big thing, that if no one has told you yet, I'm glad that I told you. So didn't like that job, switched to a job that paid considerably more money, worked there for about 3 years, and it was more on the software side of things. So it was still finance, but it was more software. Didn't like it for a variety of reasons. I didn't feel like I liked what I was doing. I didn't really feel like what I was doing was valuable. I really didn't like sitting at a desk all day, which had been an ongoing problem for me in all my jobs. And then I heard about the program that I ended up doing kind of accidentally. I heard it on an ad on the radio. So I wrote it down in my notes app really quickly, and I looked into it and I applied on a whim. And I got in, and I only had a little bit of time to accept it or not. And accepting it would entail quitting my job and committing about 4 years of my life to it, because it's a year for the master's program. And then I'm committed to teaching in Philly for 3 years. So I said, yes, it's definitely been the best career move that I've done. It's much better. It's harder, but it is much better for me. So all that to say, you really can try different things. You should look into different programs that are available to you for grad school, because I had always told myself I didn't want to do grad school because I didn't want to pay more money for it. But not only was it fully paid for, they paid me a stipend, so I would be able to commit all of my time to it and not have to work on the side. So really just look into different options and talk to different people.
Yeah, I think for me, I've always known that I wanted to be a lawyer since I was a kid. But I grew up kind of watching Law and Order, SVU, being oh, the courtroom looks so dramatic, this is going to be so much fun. And then when I got to law school, I very quickly realized that being in a courtroom would be my absolute worst nightmare. So I feel like a lot of people coming into the legal field, because a lot of the shows that we watched and a lot of the kind of general knowledge about what lawyers do is either you have to be a prosecutor or a public defender, or maybe you'll do corporate work, but there's a whole host of things that lawyers can do. So while I may not have deviated from I'm going to be a lawyer, I've definitely refined kind of my interest in the law and what I want to do, just based off experiences that I've had in terms of figuring out what you don't like is just as important as figuring out what you do like, because nobody should have to go to work and be miserable. So very happy that I figured out early that being a public defender would not be for me. So I've kind of pivoted into being more interested in policy work. So I'm still very much interested in criminal legal reform, but more than happy to be the behind the scenes person and let other people have their time in the spotlight in that sense. But yeah, I know plenty of people who come into law school thinking they're going to do one area of the law, and then they happen to go to a presentation or take a class and they fall in love with a completely different area of the law than they thought they would end up doing. So absolutely keep an open mind, and don't be afraid to make a change, because it could be the best decision that you ever make.
I would also be a bad lawyer. I think I would just cry in the courtroom it's so frustrating. I don't know how they do it. I know TV is fictionalized, but Yeah. So I mentioned that my background is mechanical engineering. I worked for 8 years in the aerospace industry. Boeing Philadelphia is actually outside of Philadelphia. It's in Ridley Park. It's a military site. So they cradle to grave, they make military helicopters. And I actually use a lot of what I learned in college. The first year I went back to book holders and I bought like my old 102 textbook back so I could relearn more circle and Lagrangian interpolation and shear and bending moment diagrams. Like I had to refresh on all of that. I think over time, although I was doing well at the job, I got frustrated by the bureaucracy. It's a very large company. It's 110 years old at this point, especially on the military side, the government side. There's a lot of red tape and a lot of regulations. I wanted to do something that I felt was net positive, and I felt pretty stuck where I was. So the whole time I was there, I was involved in a lot of the employee resource groups, which are similar to the groups that you would have on campus, right? So they had the Black Engineers Network, they had the Asian and Pacific Islanders, and Employee Association, they had the Out and Equal, Pride Alliance, and so I was heavily involved in like these extracurricular type of employee groups, and through that is kind of how I built up the leadership experience to be where I am now. So as technical program manager, I'm still technical adjacent, but I'm able to make higher level decisions and, kind of see how the big picture works and all the moving parts. What I like about my job is that our products are consumer facing. And so we can embed the DE&I work directly into the products so that the customer experiences it. So for those who have mobility issues or low vision or are neurodiverse, we can tweak our software and our hardware to make them more usable so that they have an experience just like everybody else. I will say I still do use a lot of my technical background. I'm not the one doing the calculations and coding, but I can tell when someone's BSing me. The mechanical team comes back and says they can't do that. I'm like, well, have you tried this? But yeah, it just came from a journey of you don't know what you don't know. As Emily was saying, she kind of found by happenstance. There were a lot of things I didn't even realize existed until you get into the workplace. Until I started working at Comcast, I didn't realize that product ethics was a whole field on its own, right? And I work closely with them now. So I guess what that boils down to is use what you know to the best of your advantage, but always keep an open mind. That's where the soft skills and networking come back in, because you never know where you're going to end up.
It was so great hearing from all of you. I love how everyone's journey is just so different and you never know where you're going to end up. Our students haven't heard my story because everyone's like, what, you did engineering and how are you here? And so I will also share, how did I end up working for a university for the last 8 years? But I was an RA in undergrad and I loved being an RA. And it was really great soft skills builder. I am a huge introvert, which everyone who knows me in my job says that's a lie. And I'm like, no, I'm just turning it on to do my job. But that was my skill set, is that I can turn this on and I can stand in front of a room of people and talk to them and send you on scavenger hunts and host a game night. Like I can do that. And I was like, I think I'm kind of really good at it. People were like, yeah, you should do this. So I had a really hard time finding an engineering job that interested me. Like, I know I didn't want to work in an office. I know I didn't want to sit down. I sit down for maybe 30 minutes a day. This is my longest sitting down period, is this conversation. I just get up and do things and go run around. And I love that I get to do this. I was like, I know I don't want to be in an office. I know I can't just sit forever. I don't want to stare at a screen. Like, how do I apply what I've learned over the last 4 years, but make someone's life different and better with it? And I use what I learned to relate to our students, to relate to the experience you're going through, what's happening here. And I was like, I got an offer to continue working at the university, and it's supposed to be part-time, for 4 months. And I was like, sure, it'll be a great transition while I figure out something else. And then that became a little bit longer. And then I was like, no, I'm definitely going to leave. I'm going to try something else. And I left and tried teaching in a library. I taught a STEM program in a library. And I was like, I like this teaching in a non-traditional sense. So I came back to the university worked in housing for a long time. But I was like, I need a new adventure, a new thing. And if you ask any of my friends, I thought I'd never work for a living learning program because this wasn't what I thought my path would be. I was like, no, this is the type of stuff in higher education I like, or like, I'm not even going to stay in higher education. But the opportunity arose to work for UH. And I was like, let me give the students the experience I wish I could have had. Like, I had a good experience. I have, like, all my friends are from college and definitely from UH. It's amazing how many people I forgot were in this program with us, Emily. And I'm like, oh, the whole floor, wasn't it? Like, there's a lot of them. So I was like, let me just dive into this and try this out. So yeah, I've been working for the university like basically for the last 8 years. If you count my undergrad experience, it's been 10. So that's what I like to say too. I've been here a long time, but I realized I'm doing more good here, making a bigger difference here. That was what was really important to me, finding like, what is my passion, what is my purpose? And I make a bigger impact here. I will be also quite honest though, I do not get paid that much. So like, I made a choice of what I wanted, and I wanted the experience. So yeah, sometimes you never know where you're going to end up. Try things out, talk to people. Alex wouldn't be where he was without just going to open a door and slipping a resume. Like, you never know. So like, talking to people, building those connections and relationships. You now have more people you know right here in this group, everybody. So you never know where you're going to end up. The last question I had before I was going to let our students chime in, which please put questions in the chat, is just a piece of advice that you wish you had been told in undergrad that you wish to share with the group. So something you weren't told, you wish you'd been told, and you want to tell everyone now. I can start. I'll share my favorite piece of advice. The students have heard this, but I'm going to just say it again because they should never forget. Nothing on this campus is free. It is prepaid for with your tuition. So when I say this is a free t-shirt, you're like, I don't want it, you grab it. I will also say I'm giving away pins in the comments on Friday. So if you come by on Friday, you can get a UH pin. Again, it's not free, it's prepaid for.
I agree, Chelsea. It's a very expensive free t-shirt. I kind of touched on this earlier. My advice is going to sound contradictory. One is you don't know anything. I'm sorry to just stomp and flatten you all. I was flattened coming into college and then again in the workforce, but you don't know anything. You have an academic sense, but you have no idea how the real world works, and that's okay. No one expects you to. They expect you to come and learn and ask questions and be eager and willing to be there, right? No one's going to expect you to know everything. And so you don't have to, prove how smart you are. But the real world and academics are not closely aligned. It's not linear. You don't have a GPA, you don't have a class rank. You're going to get out there. And as you heard from all the panelists here, you're going to zigzag around. And so it might take you a while to adjust, and that's A-okay. Like, none of us knew anything when we graduated. The second part is contradictory in that you know more than you think you do. I grew up in a high power distance culture, family culture, and an academic culture, right? I grew up very lucky to be around adults who were nurturing, but also firm. And so my mindset growing up was to put these adults on a pedestal, parents, friends, parents, teachers, because they were elders and senior, whatever they said was right. And as we have seen, Morgan touched on the misinformation that's out there. Just because someone's older than you or has more life experience than you doesn't mean that they know better than you. You need to trust your gut. You know more than you think you do. Stick to your values, stick to your core values. When I got to Boeing, I said, oh, this guy's a manager. He must have worked his way up, classically, linearly. He must have earned his way there. And then you talk to this guy and you're like, he doesn't know what he's doing either. He's just faking it. He's just figuring it out as he goes along. So, it's okay to admit when you don't know something, but also trust your gut and stick to your values.
Yeah, I think to echo what Becky just said, like, it's very okay to not have all the answers. Like, I think that's something that it took me a while to learn in law school, because for those of you who are unfamiliar with how law school kind of classrooms work, is we do the Socratic method where, like, your professor will ask you a lot of questions about the cases and the material that you're reading. And there's nothing more terrifying, or at least it feels like it, when you're sitting there and like an adult who's expecting you to have an answer is asking you something, you're sitting there and you're like, oh my God, I don't know. But now as a 3-0, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I don't know. It's fine. It's not the end of the world to not have all the answers. And you're not supposed to have every single answer to everything. And that's okay. So, I feel like for a lot of us who are in the honors college who are in UH, like a lot of us are perfectionists, a lot of us are type A, like we're always used to being one of the smartest people in the room, of having all the answers, but it's 100% okay to not have all of them.
Yeah, just to echo that, right? I lead a team of 30, about a third of which are, out of college, either straight out of college or a couple of years out of college. And I think, you hit the nail on the head there in terms of, don't expect you to know anything. I can teach you a lot of the technical skills and the other things, but I do expect, for you to be curious and interested and willing to learn, right? And so to that effect, right, I think, I'd say be a sponge. Learn a lot about, as much as you can, about a variety of things, right? Go for breadth, and then eventually you can go for depth, right? But learn a lot about a variety of things, because that enables a couple things. One, it enables you to kind of have meaningful conversations and talk the talk with others in an area that you might not be an expert in, but that you can start to bridge the gap, right? Thinking about bridging the gap between different teams and different things, right? And then, I think to that effect as well, right? There's always something to be learned from an experience, right? If you're working on a project, or you've been asked to do something, or you're working on something for class where you're like, oh, this isn't great. This isn't what I'm interested in. There's still something to be learned there. When I was in consulting, we got assigned to different projects, right? So I spent, sometimes months on like a healthcare project or an electronic medical records implementation, right? Which was not my area of interest, right? I was a marketer, but there was still something really valuable to be learned there, right? Around how to work with doctors and nurses, but also how to do process improvement and things like that, right? So there's always some nugget to be learned from everything you do, and so try and take advantage of that.
Everyone's already given really, really great advice. I just want to echo everything that everyone said. One last thing. I remember my undergrad experience, I always felt really, really stressed all the time and really guilty if I wanted to do something fun and I wasn't spending time studying. So I just want to say, like, it is okay to spend some time on yourself if you need that. Like, it's okay to not do everything really well. It's okay to not get straight A's. Like, I know you're trying, and you need to go for a walk sometimes. You know what? That's fine. Like, don't feel bad about that. And especially when you get older and you get into the workforce and everything is really, really busy all the time, you're going to need strategies to help you cope with that. So doing things for yourself is important.
Such a great point, right? In terms of also, it's the one time in your life where you're going to be directly surrounded by all of your friends. So go to that football game, go to that basketball game, go to that ice cream social. Don't let the homework necessarily stop you. It's a really unique time in your life.
It's like really funny that you just said that, Emily, because Facebook reminded me that like 9 years ago, we stopped doing homework and went on a walk because it was like randomly 90 degrees out or like something. And it was like this many years ago today, we like skipped it and took a walk and then made a random photo shoot on Play the Beach. Yeah. So
you need those days.
You do. I was like, oh, I love how this shows up today. I'm going to see you again. So yeah. Thank you guys so much. It was so great. We've gotten a few questions in, so please keep sending them. But I'm gonna start with, I think this is a really fitting one. What are your like favorite hobbies? What are people's hobbies? What do people do outside of work? We're gonna start with that question.
So my favorite thing to do, so as I'm still in school, but I sing in an a cappella group on campus. We're called La Capella. Shameless plug, we have a concert on November 30th. So if any of you are free that Wednesday evening, you can just sign up for the RSVP link. We're at Georgetown Lolcap on Instagram, but it's just super, super fun because a lot of my friends and myself included, like a lot of the kind of like school hobbies that we do, like everything kind of comes back to academics and getting a job and like all that stuff. And not that it's not important, because it definitely is. But it's nice to have a hobby and an activity that's not like school related, and I get to, flex my creative and musical muscles, if you will. But I also really enjoy playing video games. Like I love games like Animal Crossing and The Sims and that sort of stuff. And reading, but like non-law related reading, like just reading stuff for fun. Like I'm a huge fantasy and YA reader, so I love just like losing myself in a fantasy world, because reading a lot of cases can be like just super dry, but also depending on the case, very depressing at times. So it's nice to just like have outlets and like things to do that are not school related. So if any of you are into music, shameless plug, GSO is always super fun to get involved in, and there's lots of like on-campus musical things to do. So I always say go to the music. That's my favorite thing to do.
Chelsea and I have a lot in common. So I'm also an introvert, and I have to be on all day because I work with middle school children, teaching them math. So you spend a lot of your day being on. So a lot of my hobbies are very independent, me time. I like spin classes. I like reading for fun, going for walks, watching Netflix. Other than that, just like hanging out with friends. Nothing crazy, just taking that time.
I agree, but that kind of goes back to your self-care, taking some time to yourself for sure. I'm in a bowling league in Philadelphia, in this like tiny little basement.
Wait, I'm in a bowling league too.
We go to Pet Bowl. I go to Pet Bowl
Where's
on
that?
Broad. It's like programs employing people, so it's like a nonprofit, and they help folks with disabilities find jobs. But then at the bottom, there's like this really, really crappy 6-lane, very dim, grungy bowling alley, and there's like a taco place right next door and a beer store. So we just get beer and tacos, and then we go bowling every Monday. And it's all for a good cause,
I want to know. I'm gonna ask you about that later.
yeah, it's really fun. And also one of the things I like about Philly is that there's always stuff to do. It's a great art scene, it's a great food scene. A lot of the restaurateurs like soft open stuff before they go to New York, for example. So always just trying all the new restaurants that pop around.
Nice. I play a little guitar kind of casually, but that's something that I picked up in high school, but then in college, ended up teaching my roommate guitar, and we still jam out sometimes. And but the whole floor, I can remember back in in Ellicott, the whole floor would get involved. We'd be just having a good time. So music does bring people together, to Morgan's point.
I love it. I love the breadth of hobbies here. Mine is watching TV. That's all I do. I watch TV and movies. And if anyone wants to talk about Black Panther, I have thoughts. Our next question, do you still see yourself venturing out to other fields or disciplines, or doing projects in something that's like not yours? Yeah, that's the question.
So that definitely still happens. One story I'll tell is, so I focus primarily on e-commerce and sort of the website experience for at Scholastic, but during the pandemic, obviously a lot of volume shifted online. E-commerce became much bigger, and that then forced me to have to work more closely with our fulfillment and our operations team. Right now, I did have a second major in supply chain, so I knew enough to be dangerous. Right, talk about kind of a little bit of depth. To at least talk to these folks. But I certainly was no expert in, how do these things get picked in the warehouse? How do we work with our carriers to get that, shipped out to our customers and stuff, right? And so had to learn a lot very quickly and be a sponge, right? And learn from there and lean on their expertise, but pick up enough to be able to have an intelligent conversation and actually, make sure we could drive things forward for our customers. So yeah, you're always learning, you're always on your toes, right? It's not directly under your purview. Being able to have that skill set to be able to kind of flex out, just serves you that much better, especially as you move up in your career.
Yeah, to echo that, the law is a very, very broad field, and no one area is like completely isolated. And even now, like, I'm not even a full-fledged lawyer yet, but like my family loves to ask me questions, and I'm like, this is not legal advice. I'm not a lawyer. Like, please consult with like a real attorney, but blah, 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 blah. But nothing is completely isolated in and of itself in the law. So I think it is really important just to have kind of like a basic understanding of a lot of things, which is what law school is for, but also to, be willing to learn, to be willing to do the deep dive into Westlaw or Lexis and, kind of learn about things, because nothing is, no man is an island, is whatever the saying is. No one area of the law is an island either. So always have to be willing to learn and willing to look into things. And if you don't have the answer, then, find someone who does, or open up that Westlaw tab, because you're going to need it.
Yeah, I think the original question is, do you see yourself venturing out? That's what I'm doing now. I'm totally new to the software and technology space, and I'm not an accessibility expert at all, but I'm in program management. And so, as Alex was saying before about being a sponge and how even experiences that you don't like can help inform future experiences. During my interview, they were asking, tell me about your program management experience. And I said, I don't really have program management experience, but I was a systems engineer for a bit. And I had to think at the higher level and not just, these individual work streams. And one time I was talking to the hydraulics team who was routing a hydraulics line over an electrical line in an aircraft, and there was a leak. And I'm like, that's going to start a fire, because these two engineering teams weren't thinking about each other. So I was able to demonstrate from an engineering perspective, I had that broader level of view to find gaps, right? So that was a transferable skill that I was able to communicate that had nothing to do with software or accessibility or television or anything, right? So I guess the bottom line is take whatever skills you have, whatever experiences you have, and see how you can transform them to the next opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely did a big venture already. Currently teaching middle school, but I'm certified for 7 through 12. So I would consider venturing into high school. I plan to stay in Philadelphia, and I do want to stay in public education. But if I ever don't want to be a classroom teacher anymore, I don't see myself being a principal or an administrator, but that would be a step to go. And then I think I've been thinking about possibly curriculum writing, because the school district of Philadelphia has a new math curriculum that I have some thoughts about, and they're not all positive. So maybe doing that later on.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much. Such good advice having here. I'm not going to taking notes for myself. I think this is probably going to be our last question, would be second to last question, because we are almost wrapping up. But can you guys give some advice on building bonds and internships or jobs that can be important for your careers or students' careers post-graduation? Yes, advice on building connections and relationships and kind of building that network.
I think one important thing to keep in mind is, as you're networking or meeting people, is to just have that kind of elevator pitch, right, that they talk about in some career classes, right? Be able to speak to the things you're interested in, because even if the person you're directly talking to, it may not be directly, related to them, they might know somebody, right? And that's where, when I was in college, I talk about, these are the kinds of things I'm interested in, right? This is what I'm interested in getting into. These are the areas of focus, whatever. And there were several, conversations that then led to, I know this guy who works at, Under Armour. Let me put you in touch so you can, do an informational interview. And those kinds of conversations, people are always willing to have a coffee chat or an informational. And so, but it all starts with making your interests and your area of focus kind of known as you're talking.
Yeah, definitely second that. You never know who you're talking to happens to know or has a friend of a friend, and that sort of thing can be really, really useful. But also following up is super important, because you don't want to go through all this work of networking and meeting people, and then you forget to send the email, and that could have been a connection into somewhere that you're interested in working in. But at least for me, in my experiences, I've interned twice, I guess now. And I think for me, what's been really important is like just it's fun to like talk about work, what you're working on and that sort of thing, but also like be able to build kind of connections outside of that, because some of the most like meaningful connections that I've made with like people on the legal and policy teams of places that I've interned at and worked with is being able to be like, oh yeah, like, we're both really interested in these things, but also like I know so and so about this, and being able to, strike up a conversation and be personable and be friendly, and going back to that, the importance of soft skills, because it's all fine and dandy to talk about practice areas and what you want to do, and that it's really important to know those things, but also being able to like foster a connection and show that you're like, I'm a well-rounded person, and like I want to be able to build connections that will maybe even last like outside of when you're done interning or working at that place, so that you can follow up with them, down the line when maybe you need something. So
I guess I'll go. My advice would just be to be authentic. Don't try to BS and try to say what you think they want to hear, because that person probably is a better expert in that field and you will get caught. And it's also for those who are introverts, you don't have to be as on, right? If you're authentic, I can tell when someone's passionate about something, even if I don't care about what they're talking about, right? It can be some very obscure hobby, but if they are passionate, I, as the listener, am going to be able to glean, okay, this is how that skill can transfer. This is how it applies to this opportunity here. And people love, the people that you're talking to, they love helping. They love making connections. It is surprisingly easy. If you have a meaningful conversation, they'll reach back and be like, oh yeah, I know this person. Like, I know Alex. Yeah, he'd be great. It's like surprisingly easy. That's why networking is so important, which took me a very long time to figure out. So just be yourself, be authentic, keep an open mind. You never know where things are going to take you. And then when you get to a point where you have the privilege, make sure you also bring people up, right? You afford those other opportunities, and you're also looking out for other people, because it'll pay back, it'll get paid forward.
Yeah, I would say just build relationships on a human level, like not only with bosses or whoever you're interning for, but with the other people you're interning with. Because as you both progress in your careers, like those are your friends. Like at both of those jobs that I left, I still have like lifelong friendships that will help me with other things that I need. And then also, if there's ever anything that you can do to help someone too, then they'll remember that and they'll help you in the future. So just like, and most people want to help you. Like people want to help you. So just don't be afraid to ask for help.
Yeah, I want to add my own little bit of wisdom in this. I think a lot of people are thinking like, oh, it's the person I meet at this networking event, or like my direct supervisor is the person that's gonna like put me in contact with things. But I got recommended for this job actually at University Honors after like my director, who was like 3 levels ahead of me at my last job. Like they knew I was leaving, they knew it was on good terms, but they were like, I just talked to them about things and like things I was interested in the job and things like they knew how my experience was at my previous role. And they were like, well, we saw this other role and you'd be great for it. Like it was a recommendation is how I got here. I didn't know this was open. I didn't see this. I thought I was gonna be done with the university forever. And I was like, these connections you build across the company. It's not just the person you're directly working with, the people on your team. It's everyone. Being authentic, being yourself really changes how people like perceive you, and how people are like, oh, like there's a genuine connection here. I want to help this person. No one wants to deal with fakers. So like, don't be fake. I eloquently say. Yeah, but just really, really great advice, everybody here. And I love it. Any other questions you want to come in? I think we've answered everything. And I have no problem with wrapping up a little early. Nothing's coming in. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, panelists, so much. If you would like to leave your contact information in the chat to everybody, and so people can reach out. That's great. I know also a lot of you are very busy and you're going to be like, I can't take on like 50 mentees. So if you would like to leave your information with me and students can reach out to me like one-on-one, I can help work through some of that too. Yeah, thank you guys so much. It's been really, really great hearing from all of you. Yeah, we're hearing all the great things coming. Oh my God, yeah, use LinkedIn. I'm horrible at my LinkedIn. And just, if you're ever wondering what University Honors is up to, you can follow us on Instagram. I run that account. So I'm really proud of it. I like to tell everyone about it. But thank you guys so much. It was a really great pleasure. And I really love hearing from you all. And yeah, we're gonna end it here. I'm gonna stop recording. And as soon as I figure out where that is.